Today's topic is something which would really interest all of us, which is choosing strategies for change. And we have eminent panelists, eminent guests along with us, who have done a lot of work in their chosen field, and we would be very happy to have their insight, their inputs, and we would definitely have a lot of good takeaways for us and our day-to-day life and day-to-day functioning as far as learning is concerned. To start with, I quote, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." If we can recognize that change and uncertainty are basic principles, we can greet the future and the transformation we are undergoing with the understanding that we do not know enough to be pessimistic. To exist is to change. To change is to mature. To mature is to go on creating oneself endlessly. With this, I would request Andrian to throw light on today's topic. Mr. Andrian, please. Thank you.
Good evening, and it gives me great pleasure and honor to be with all of you here in Pune. I hope all of you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
When Mr. Niyogi asked me to speak on this topic of choosing strategies for change on an important day like this today, the first thing that came to mind is, as an advertising professional, my single-minded job is to continuously ask people to change. Change from an existing product to the product I'm advertising, change from an existing service to a service I'm advertising, change from the kind of person they are to the kind of person my clients would like them to be. And then I took a step back and I realized that through all these years that I've worked and all the ads that I have done, which are the ads that are closest to my heart. And I realized that the answer to today's question really lies in the ads that I like. And I realized that people are most likely to change when you ask them to change to a higher order. When you ask them not to change, maybe because the product is so good or the service is so good, but if you try and tell them that the product or the service that you're trying to persuade them to buy will make them better people. Now, this might seem a little strange in today's world, which is so competitive, so aggressive, but I found that any ad or any piece of creative that persuades people to, in whatever way, to kind of lift themselves up, to become better human beings, to look at, you might be, for example, advertising a car, and you find out that, the car can make you a better human being. I think people are most likely to react to that. And that's why my answer today to choose a strategy to change is to, even in a time like this, which we call a difficult time, is to persuade people to change to a higher order of goodness.
At the same time, it's equally important that the aspects which are touching our commercial aspect as well our day-to-day personal aspect need to have a kind of a balanced scorecard which will eventually give a great performance and great happiness for the entire process and the entire life cycle of every professional and every human being. I would like to have Mr. Tushar Mehendale's input regarding this point of view.
Sure. I will respond to what you just said, but taking off from where Andrian just stopped. I tend to agree with Andrian because, see, my personal experience at ElectroMech, I took over the company when our company was very small. Today, we have managed to grow almost about 50 times in the past 9 years. Right? It's almost a huge, high rate of growth that we have been experiencing. And in such kind of a growth scenario, it always is the case that you have to continuously keep on changing the way you are working, the way you are manufacturing, the way you are doing your routine activities, how you scale up. And the most important aspect is during that, the growth phase becomes to take your people along with you, because people are your assets. So how do you take your people along with you? Is just like Andrian said, that people like to move to something better. So I will just take off from there. Is that yes? I mean, people like to work in a company which is growing. People like to be associated with winners. Okay, so whenever we were growing, whenever we are putting in new policies in place, new processes in place, new systems in place, it always becomes necessary for us to communicate to the people that, see, okay, what we are going to do, it's actually going to be much difficult in order to implement all those things. But at the end of the day, just think what all the kinds of benefits that you are going to derive, not just as a professional, but as a company. The company grows, you grow along with the company. So that is how actually we drive the change within our organization, and we get commitment from the people who are part of the change to really go ahead and implement all sorts of new processes. And that is what has helped us. And to answer your point regarding a balanced scorecard, so I mean, what I feel that at the end of the day, if change happens for the better, then that is a change which is automatically accepted, and change which people take it as their own. They feel like they own the change, and they go on and do a lot of things. So if I don't know whether I addressed the point which you made.
Another aspect of goodness, where there is the honest, candid, upfront communication so as to what is to be done and what is required to be done as far as your company is concerned. This is what I take from a particular point of view as far as Tushar is concerned. Let's listen our expert views from Rajeev also, because Rajeev is handling a great workforce and a great company, and he's been handling great brands in the past, and many more companies he's handling in the past so many years. And he's also been into recruitment business for quite a long time, and he knows which person to recruit and why to recruit. He's been an expert in that particular field. So let's have his view as far as choosing strategies for change, because people are the biggest asset for any organization, for any institution. So let me have Rajeev and Rajeev's expert views on this topic.
Thanks, Sailesh. My first submission to you is, if you're expecting some wisdom, I'll really disappoint you, because there's nothing really unique that I'll be talking, which maybe perhaps some of you would not have done here. When you start, I think the topic today is a great topic, because we see the change of guard in the White House. It's the best day to discuss change today. My take on this is, first of all, there's no single strategy for change. You might have models for change, right from 1945 when Third Living came with his first model for change, until 1994 when people are still coming up with different models. The models can be the same, but then what works for you, what may not work for me, may not work for him, may not work for him. So those again you have to define within your organizations, knowing your culture, your people, your processes. But overall, if I'm supposed to define change and how the process is, it's basically broken down. What would be a better way to do is to break it down into two parts, the strategic part of it and the tactical or the execution part. So execution, obviously, people would come into play, your processes, your systems that you want to put in place. But strategy is something that should be governed or driven from the top. There's no questions about it. People do say that, okay, I should be aware, I should be part of the strategy and things like that. But yeah, you have to give the devil its due. So the CEO or the business leaders or the management should have clear-cut understanding of what is it that they want to achieve. So that should be driven from the top. It cannot be driven elsewhere. Very clear priorities in terms of where are we today, where do you want to take this organization, or maybe a process or whatever, in whatever time, next few months or years, depending upon what you want to change. And that has to be, again, it has to be driven from the top. Complete commitment, 100% commitment, and competence also. That's again a debatable item, of your senior leaders has to be there. Without which, I don't think any change process would surely make it to the end. So these are first two activities, that we need to ensure that, and whatever my experience has been, and these are the changes, those are sustainable changes, because you really push it through from the top. And in terms of, the execution part of it, yeah, surely you'll get stakeholders involved, you'll get people involved, you'll work along with people. There has to be a very strong communication plan. Communication obviously plays a key role, a very, very effective role in terms of any change that you want to make in an organization. So, this is broadly, if I am to define what are the key elements that goes into one of the, if you want to make some, change in your organization. And added to it, some of my experiences has been, if suppose say any organization is used to incremental change, and that's a very important aspect. And if you're used to incremental change, don't get radical changes suddenly. That's something which obviously upsets a lot of things, because maybe the organization is not ready for that. If it's used to incremental changes, maybe cut it down into phases and then start moving. So that's again another important aspect of. I'm just trying to define maybe the broader aspects of the change phenomenon, and then maybe we can go down in our discussions and start looking at each and every one of them. So this is broad.